When practicing any type of self-development work, there comes a time when there is a need for reflection, a time to pause and check in with where we were and how far we've come, to gauge whether or not our effort is yielding the desired results and whether any changes are needed. This is the space that we are in now and currently offering to others, as we are now inviting those who have been utilizing this philosophy in their lives to come on as a guest and share their personal journeys with us. The trials and the tribulations, the challenges and the championships that they have earned in the energetic realm of their own minds. Now, on this second episode of this format, we invite Michelle into the third chair to share her personal journey utilizing this philosophy with us. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast and share your personal journey, please reach out to me or Alexander on Facebook or email me at Aaron, Aaron, at wise-wise.com. We are looking forward to hearing many of the stories out there. Many who were inspired by utilizing the philosophy to change parts of their lives for the better, and in turn, inspire us and many of you out there. We appreciate all of your energy and the continued sharing of our podcasts. Please take note that we did have some audio issues at the beginning of this podcast, but eventually got them worked out. So now relax and listen, and let's journey with Michelle.
Wise.
With Aaron and Alexander.
Uncovering our authentic self.
Through self-awareness, conscious communication, and emotional responsibility. I am extremely excited to introduce our next guest on our personal journey. It is Michelle. Michelle has been a huge supporter of Alexander, and I've met her in various sound journeys. She's traveled all around the North Carolina, Virginia area to attend Alexander's sound journeys, and I'm so excited, Michelle, to have you here and for you to share why you are following Alexander everywhere. And I've heard you on your social media discuss, a little bit about your health journey that you've gone through over the past couple of years, and I'm sure that plays a huge part in your journey utilizing this philosophy and helping you get back to your overall energetic wellness. So, Michelle, why don't you come in and introduce yourself, and if you want to also share any of your human design or destiny cards or astrology or anything like that, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It's an honor to be here, sharing this space with both of you. And yes, I have been following Alexander for a few years since I had the good fortune to be introduced to him. My dear friend Amanda hosted him for a sound journey at her Pilates studio. And that was my first introduction to subtle energy, and so I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
And Michelle, would you like to share any of your human design or destiny cards?
Oh yeah, so I am a 6-2 generator, and my my birth card is Jack of Hearts, and my planetary ruling card is 2 of Hearts, 2 of Diamonds.
Yeah, wonderful information. And that being a generator, Aaron and myself happen to be generators, and so we always have a extra special vibe when we have multiple generators just plugged in, and I love to see the same types in a group connecting. You can see synergy many times, and with that 6-2 being, it was the 6-2, correct? yeah, being the visionaries, and some of the sixes are such visionaries, and the twos are some of the most supportive people walking the planet. And so they're always great to have on your team, 6-2s, but they need the ability in the room to carry out that vision that they have. And then of course the Jack of Hearts, I have a special place in my heart for those Jack of Hearts, being Queen of Hearts myself. And it is a sacrifice card, and it is, those Jacks are so creative and crafty. And it's a beautiful energy to be around. It can be very playful as well. And as with all types of astrology and information of this type, of course, we have our high sides and our low sides of those energies. So I'm sure that we'll hear some of the both the challenges and the benefits of your particular design. And I do thank you in advance for all of your attendance at my workshops and sound journeys. Of course, it's always a pleasure to see you when you walk through the door. So thank you for that, and thank you for being open to share with these beautiful people some of your journey.
So, Michelle, this is the point where I usually ask the guests to tell their story on how they met Alexander, but I would like if you would go back and touch upon when your health journey really started. Maybe what was your life before you actually kind of came aware of getting back to an overall state of energetic wellness?
Wow. Okay. So I'll go back to that spot, and when I met Alexander, well, I'll say I was in a deep place of suffering. I had been battling a lot of health challenges for quite a few years. I've been battling an autoimmune disorder. I was struggling to recover from a couple spinal surgeries. I had had some, heart issues, and I was existing on, like doctors, surgeries, physical therapy, and medications, and little else in the way of managing my overall well-being. And so I was in a state of, I'll just say chaos, to be kind to myself, when I met Alexander.
And you've done such an incredible job. First of all, I do commend you. A true warrior, the transition that I've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, and now stepping it up to this level of vulnerability is just beautiful to see the growth in you, Michelle. And of course, we all have more in our journey, but I like to tell people, be sure to take time along the path to remember where we've come from, because sometimes we can feel like we're stuck, or we're not necessarily growing enough or fast enough. And to look back and remember where we come from sometimes can be very humbling. And that's part of what this sharing is, just to kind of take us back through the journey, not to bring up a bunch of negative stuff, but to relive some of the successes and some of the beauties of the effort, basically. And I just want you to know that I really commend your effort, and it has been continuous since I met you, and it's been amazing to watch. So thank you.
Yeah, like I have stated at the beginning of the first episode we did with Claire, along our journey, there is a time for us to stop and reflect on how far we've come. To, obviously to, like Alexander said, celebrate what we've done thus far, but also make note of any changes or tweaks that we need to do that we've been, as we create our processes and continue to fine-tune and tweak what we're working on. It's always good to pause and have a state of reflection.
Yes, it is super important.
Michelle, could you share with us an experience in which you have utilized this philosophy to overcome a past behavior, or even on your health journey, how it has bridged the gap between maybe something you've done physically and you've bridged it into, healing an emotional part, or something on another level of the 5 levels, or, anything that you feel like you'd want to share, because I would say that you're a vet of this work.
Thank you. I'm not sure that I would say I'm a vet, but something that I do focus on every day, which is, something that the awareness is priceless, is focusing on my intention versus expectation. And, when we went to our first human design workshop, I think is maybe when that awareness came to me. And initially, I was so caught up in my expectations, the cycle of disappointment and expectations of others, and maybe expectations of myself that I was projecting on others, that I wasn't aware of the cycle, the really just crazy cycle that I don't, that's not a great word, but I guess when you do the same thing and expect a different result, I mean, it is what it is. So
it's a repetitive motion.
Right.
Yeah, and which is like a cycle. And, earlier before we actually went live, we were discussing it's similar to our judgment, as outwardly as inwardly. So, when we catch ourselves judging someone externally, that's a direct sign that we're judging ourselves in some area as well. And so doing this internal work helps us to break these cycles or these patterns, and we heal both simultaneously. Our judgment and expectations of others, getting more clear on giving ourselves a break and working with intentions rather than those expectations. And so I think that was a beautiful introduction to that kind of seeing that however we see something outwardly, we're looking at it somewhere inwardly the same, or vice versa. So when we're beating ourselves up, or people that have perfection issues with themselves, normally they have very heavy judgment issues with others around them because they hold them to similar standards. So this is part of the dissecting and learning, getting closer to our authentic self, and that is breaking these family lineage patterns that have basically been trained to us early in age. And I happen to feel that's a big part of this work and what you have been working so hard on.
Yeah, and that's obviously, if anybody listens to the podcast, who's listening to this episode, as Michelle mentioned before we started recording, we were talking about the vulnerability episode and how Michelle was talking about how I've shared my struggle with self-judgment. And even recently, within the past week, I've had expectations where I'm always try to be careful with expectations, but sometimes you just do it unknowingly because you feel like you know somebody and you can set those expectations with them. And a lot of it has to do with your wants, like how you want something to go. Right. And then when things don't, like I've had like a really large emotional reaction where I've had to kind of like remove myself and then go through. And then this person would ask me, what is wrong? And they try to like push me to talk about what's wrong. And it just, then it brings up the judgment, and it almost appears like I'm judging them, but really almost every time when I feel like I don't want to say something to somebody because I feel like I'm going to be judged, it really all comes back to my internal judgment of myself.
Yes. And that is part of that emotional responsibility that we discuss, to be willing to see that the majority of the time we have an issue with something external. It's there reflecting a lesson that we need to learn about ourselves. And when we turn the lesson around to ourselves and what can I adjust or shift to bring my life into resonance, you're going to be a whole lot more successful in that than trying to direct everybody in your life to do things the way that you feel like they ought to be done. And I think, that's, some people call it control issues. And many times this is just passed on to us from a parent or siblings or something like that. And it takes a great bit of effort to break those patterns. And as you started this off with living in intention rather than expectation, is a lifelong practice that Aaron's bringing in now to, to say that, hey, he just hit a snag this past week. And this is the discussion that I want, the vulnerability that I want to be more and more applicable and accessible to people, because we need to talk about our struggles that we're overcoming to show that, no, we're human. I'm not saying I'm better than you. I'm sharing my struggles. Let's share our struggles and our successes. And every now and then, let's throw in a disappointment or a failure there, but not focus on it. Just say, hey, last week I failed and I did get into expectations and stepped out of intention and I got my feelings hurt, and it was a good reminder to live back in intention. And so, see, we don't have to feel like, I feel like with people with me, they feel like they have to be perfect around me or they're going to get judged. And unfortunately, that's kind of like the mama or daddy role that I get to play. I don't want to play that role because I'm not expecting people to be perfect around me. I'm just expecting them, or looking for them, not expecting, but looking for them to want to do a little bit better next time and to want to do a little bit better the following time. That's all. Look at that beauty. And so I think that that's important, and why changing the format of the Wise podcast to bring in a third person to be willing to share some of this vulnerability isn't easy, people. So give the Michelles and the Claires and the Laurels and the people that have done it so far, be sure that you give them some applause, because they're really stepping into being warriors here. And what else have you found has been very stimulating for you and helpful for you from this particular philosophy, Michelle?
Well, you said it a couple times, and I'm chuckling to myself when I've heard you say love warrior. Mm-hmm. Because my former self would have really resisted that. And I mean, I'm still a little bit resisting it right now, actually. That's good. But it's funny. So the thing that has moved me, if we're going to talk about something that moved me, was one of your sound journeys. I mean, they all move me. But in particular, because your presence allows others to be where they're at, which is a gift that I deeply appreciate and has allowed me to better accept myself. So I'm super grateful for that. And I am working on that always to allow others. Work in progress.
Well said.
But the sound journey. Now that was wow. So I'm not, I know I've said this, may have shared this with you before. To ask you to maybe reconsider hearing it in a different, from the first time. And so as I was, entering the studio that day, I was full of so much gratitude for Amanda.
The owner.
And how much my health had improved, and just how much general love and gratitude that I was experiencing. And my intention was I wanted to give it all back. Oh. And to help the next person who was where I was at and needed it, or wherever they were at. So when you started your talk and, expanding our consciousness and the meditation and the sound blessing for her studio, and you said, okay, I'm going to call on you love warriors. That day, I felt like a love warrior. And so I opened up to it a little bit. And when you said to think of someone to forgive, my dad came to mind. And my dad, passed away. But I'd held a lot of, things against him. And when I did that, and I was holding them against him, not only for myself, but for my siblings and for anybody who I perceived that he, harmed in any kind of way, And, and I don't want to get too off track. So when I had that realization and when you said send some love, I was in such a loving, supportive environment that I was able to open my heart and send him love without restriction.
Wow. Amazing.
And when that happened, I experienced, like an exchange of light and energy and an awareness, regarding forgiveness, that has really just transformed the way that I think about life and people in general. And so, thank you.
That's just such an amazing story, and I remember that evening, and it can bring me to tears so quickly because I felt that something very, very special had happened there that evening, and I didn't exactly know the details. And then, of course, when you shared it later, that that it actually had a potential change on all 5 of the levels: the physical, the mental, the emotional, the energetic, and the spiritual, all kind of simultaneously. And then a couple days later, you were drawn, and I'll let you pick it up from there.
Right. So at that point, I'll say my heart chakra may have opened on levels it hadn't experienced in a while, and it flew out of rhythm. And these are things I had experienced before, but not in this environment. And but over the next couple of days, I started experiencing some significant, discomfort and a lot of unease. And, I did end up driving myself to urgent care and had told I was having a little heart issue there going on. And thankfully I had a procedure and it's all fixed. So,
beautiful.
But, throughout, what has amazed me throughout that is I didn't have any fear.
Big key. And what would you say the shift of that was? Do you attribute that to part of that heart chakra just opening up? That just trust? Because trust has to be there for vulnerability. And sometimes that's that spiritual level that we throw in here a lot because it's important. And those of us in despair, we can get very far away from trust. And forgiveness is the direct avenue toward trust again. When we forgive and we release all that weight so it can open up and be trusting. And, and that it led you to have something done that physically that may have been needed to be done for quite a while. And just the fact that you got the message on all 5 levels is one of the most amazing stories that I've ever heard and been part of. And just your outlook, and not just the experience, but what you took from that experience and how you've just lived your life, just very different from that point on. And it's been truly amazing to watch. And I know that it's been excruciating at times for you to go through. And once again, that's the other side of this vulnerability, is not to paint any pink parade that this work is always fun and easy. It is really, when the challenge comes, do you choose consciousness or weakness? And once you know, you can't unknow. Let's say that. So our suffering changes, and if we don't change, then our suffering gets even heavier and heavier, because once you know, you can't unknow.
Yes, that is so true. And that I will say that when we first relocated to North Carolina, I was in a huge state of suffering, and now I feel so grateful to call it solitude, and
beautiful.
And that I have peace with that and joy and just gratitude for that, because I didn't have a lot of gratitude when we moved here, so
right.
super.
Well, now I see you inspiring so many people and sharing your story and your other methods as well, as I know that has served you through your time. And you're becoming an amazing inspiration and teacher in many ways, and that's just going to continue to expand.
I did want to ask you a question, Alexander, about her story, because I think people out there listening may have some confusion about how doing a philosophy could eventually or possibly cause some physical discomfort. And we've talked about how emotional stuffing and trauma can eventually lead to some physical discomfort. We've done an episode on that. But I did want you to maybe come in and talk about, I don't know whether you want to use her example or just explain in a general sense how, if you've had a lot of emotional trauma, some stuffing and some maybe withdrawing, how that could possibly lead to physical discomfort as you start to open up and do this work.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up, and I do have so much to say about this, but I'll try to keep it condensed. Working out the physical body, many times the muscles have to get sore to get stronger. And if we take that into the energetic realm, many times as we start to move things emotionally and energetically, they can create what feels like physical discomforts. And I went through 5 years of excruciating chest pain that felt physical, but it was really on the energetic and emotional levels. And I happen to feel that the majority of pain are on those levels. It's not in the physical level from my point of view. But one of the most important things to realize as well is that many times when a healing is happening, just as a purge, or anybody that's ever done a liver detox, sometimes you will get sick before you feel better. And you may even have to throw up to get rid of some of those toxins if you push it too fast. But the key is to get those toxins out, and many times you have to go through flu-like symptoms to allow that. Well, healing is very similar. In New German medicine, the way that they look at things is that the physical level is the last level. So when you are doing something on the physical, such as a heart issue or any type of issue in the physical body, they celebrate it and they go, okay, well, congratulations, you're on the last level of it. You've already worked on it on all these other levels, and now you're ready to release it through the physical. Now, see, that one thing, I don't agree with that 100%, but the thing I wanted to point out is the mindset that creates between somebody receiving information that they may have a major illness going on, and whether it's fear invicted or this whole like, congratulations, you're on the last level. I mean, that, and I've been with enough people that have had diagnoses like that, and you see people change in that moment. It's a trauma that they never truly get over. And how that is presented is so very important. And so now taking that into this, that like even with this scenario, it wasn't, see, the sound journey experience didn't create that issue. What it did is it made all the other levels to be in support of the physical. And then Michelle was wise enough to listen to the messages, because I think another thing that I shared at that particular time was to listen to your body. And I remember you, Michelle, saying something to me about that, to listen to the physical body. It's always talking to you. And so her following that lead was opening up on all those levels, allowed the physical body to do the healing that it needed to do, or to go get the help to have that level of the healing assisted. And that's very important to see that this is why allowing and acceptance is the very first step to healing, is that when we accept, we allow all 5 of our levels to work in congruency. This is very, very important. But many times the emotional stuff that we have to release, see, the emotions are created in the mind or in the mental, and then the emotions affect the energetic level, and then the energetic level drains the physical level. So when you get all those communicating simultaneously, then expedient healing can happen. Miracles, so-called, can happen. And our resistance to things, our judgment of things, all these negative aspects, see, this is a new light to bring in, is really shining the light on that allows the 5 levels to work congruently together, is what acceptance really, really does. And that's what, in Michelle's story, that I got the biggest lesson, that she was saying, hey, this person came to vision of someone that I'm holding negative stuff about. I don't want to hold this anymore. I want to be in this light of the way that this feels. And so, you know what? I'm going to release that so I can send this person some of this light. It's not about whether they deserve it or not. And it's not about what they did to me. It's just that I want to feel this giving this light because it feels good. And in order to do that, we have to go through our next level of healing. And because Michelle woke up to all of that, she accepted all of that like a true love warrior, like a healing warrior, and didn't resist it, went through the doctors, went through the physical, was willing to go through the emotional and work on the energetic and see that she needed to start eating differently. She needed to pay attention to who she's around, to the type of programs maybe she's watching. And I don't know all the levels that you changed, but you can maybe share some of those if I didn't hit them. But the thing is that's through acceptance. See, the acceptance is I've got to change some things, and I got to get these 5 levels. And even though you weren't thinking all of that intellectually, that's the beauty of this, is that's just like the way that I see the puzzles falling as you're telling the story. They're all falling into place because of acceptance. And once again, acceptance doesn't equal condoning. It doesn't mean that you agree with it. It doesn't mean that you like it. But acceptance means that, no, it's here. And even though it's outside of my preference, you know what? I'm going to invite you in. Come on in. Let's finally look at this that we've been running from for a long time. So I hope that answers your question. But yes, healing many times is uncomfortable. And I think you can certainly attest to that. Would you say, Michelle?
Yeah. Yes. And thank you for asking that question, Aaron, because, having experienced, I will say, various levels of heart attacks throughout my life, yes, I'm grateful for the awareness and the acceptance and the allowing and all of the levels that the power of, you, Alexander, and your guidance and your presence and the music, all those things, the love, all of it, that it just provided a conducive environment that created trust for me that, I'm not sure that I've ever had.
Yes, well, I received that so deeply, and especially that last statement that you just used. I want to take time for you to realize that is very special, and I do receive that. And to realize that is what I define as a successful relationship. See, there's so many different types of intimacy, but trust is the most beautiful intimacy. When you truly feel that you're supported on all these levels and you can open up to a level maybe that you never have before, that is a very successful relationship that we were able to ignite and be able to maintain through these years in a beautiful, beautiful way. And when people ask me what, success in a relationship is, it has nothing to do with longevity. It has nothing to do with so-called marriage or anything like that. It has to do with what do the two people that walk away from that relationship, what did they gain from each other? And that can be a 5-minute conversation, a 5-year relationship, or a 50-year relationship. But what makes it successful is not the time, it's what both parties choose to get out of that experience. And I've gotten so much out of your experience and you sharing your story and the way that it has helped me in so many ways to to when I doubt my work or when I go through times of doubting the philosophy and all these years I've put into this, and even the performing the sound, because I go through doubts like everybody else does. These are what I call the food for my soul. When you remember or somebody gets to share something that you did or said to them that really changed something, and that's what we want people, the listeners, to hear, is that, you know, we have over 68 episodes of breaking this information down, and we're even developing a brand new podcast that we hadn't shared too much yet, that's going to be a little bit more even entertaining. But the beauty is to get people to understand that, you know, Michelle here has been a long-time follower and listener of the podcast, a practitioner of this philosophy, and your story and your vulnerability and your sharing is just amazing again. So thank you once again.
Michelle, are there any current challenges that you're going through at the moment that you'd be willing to share, and we could interact with Alexander through it?
Wow. Well, yes, I am. I mean,
as we all are.
right. Well, I have a couple really big ones. So the first one is, like my identity and redefining, who I am, how I want to show up, how I want to serve, and, what the opportunities are as I take all my new awareness around energy and healing and human design and health and wellness, and that's really it. That's it in a nutshell, which is a huge one. However, at the same time, I'm just super grateful that I'm starting with a foundation of personal responsibility for my energy and my emotional awareness. So thank you, Alexander, so much for that.
Yes, I mean, it is amazing, and I can attest to that, because so many people do jump the gun in this world to run out and be of service to people before they have really put their time in to enough of themselves. And I'm not casting out any judgment in that, because I know it can be very exciting to want to be of service, but we can really only be useful to people to the level that we've helped ourselves. And just because we can recite some information that we have read somewhere doesn't mean that we're going to know when to give that information or how to give it. There's many different levels to helping rather than just passing along information. And you've been amazing to truly put in your time. And when I share with people that I worked on myself and developing this philosophy for 10 straight years before I ever even considered being of service to someone. Reason that I share that story is because of that, to realize that it was a responsibility that I carried, that before I go in, I need to have enough success stories. I need to have enough failure stories of things that I overcome. And that for me personally, it was that 10-year mark. That, okay, I've got 10 years of study, and I'm not saying that everyone should have that much. That's just how much I needed. First of all, I was very insecure, and insecurity was one of my biggest things to overcome. So I think that, in the beginning, and I of course don't know the exact time frame of how long I think we've been in each other's lives for around 3, maybe going on 4 years now. Is that correct? 4 going on 5, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's 4 years.
So that, and you've done so much in this time, but once again, we can be very guilty of beating ourselves up for wanting to be better and not being where we think that we should be. I think right now one of the most beautiful things is when I see somebody share their vulnerability and share their story. And I think now you're inspiring people. I see your Facebook feed full of gratitude for you sharing your different stories and that types of thing. And for me, the beginning of being of service that's a big part of it, is showing your belly. I call it that. There's no ego here. because I'm coming to you people to say, hey, this is where I come from. I'm not trying to be anything that I'm not. And I have to tell people weekly, I'm not looking to be a guru. I'm not looking to be anybody's leader. I'm just looking to assist people to have a more fulfilled life and relationships. That doesn't make me or exclude me from the same pitfalls that everybody else goes through. So when I share my stories, that's why. It's not because I enjoy hearing me talk about myself. It's that, hey, let me show you where I've come from. Let me bare my belly, and maybe you will be vulnerable with me. And that's been the beautiful dance. So I think the track that you're on is so amazing, and it very rarely, because even after I started, after 10 years now, I've been doing it professionally for 13 years. So all of this has been going on 25 years, and it's been just that, I use the phrase chop wood, carry water all the time, that, hey, the time you make use of the time will reveal the opportunities down the road, and already see the doors opening for you in areas that I haven't got to discuss with you, but I see some certain doors opening for you. So I think one of the biggest practices with this is patience, and to know that you are already helping people and you are already being of service, and that's just going to continue to grow. When we feel like we need to, of course, make a living, and that's always part of it as well. This is where I like to just suggest people to find a way to make some money on the side, and then practice this, to not make that part of doing this in the beginning. And I've had to live extremely frugal, making it my only way of income, but I had to put that level of dedication into it for myself. But I tried to advise others, hey, make it easier on yourself and start off part-time. Take the weight of money off by getting some kind of little part-time job, and maybe orchestrate that job in a way to where you're still talking with people. You're still able to practice the skills you need practicing. So that's a way to, for insecure people, to find a way to be social in their job. That way they can practice the skills that they need to be practicing of the being of service while they're getting paid to do some other type of job. And that is being a shaman in this world, in my opinion, is just finding a way to get all of your needs met without putting stress or strain in any one particular area. And then it's just the concept of, this is just what I'm doing for the rest of my life. So there's no hurry. And that's what I tell people. Sometimes people say, well, you probably don't want to talk about this stuff because, you do it all day in your work. And I say, well, no, really, I don't talk about anything else. I mean, this isn't my work. This is my life. And if you're interested in talking about anything else, then I'm probably not going to be as interested. So see, it's not work. And when it just becomes your life, and I'm not saying that it needs to for you or any of the listeners, but I do know that there's a freedom in that, and it takes the rush away. And then it just becomes okay, how can I now I need to focus on the physical a little bit and get a little bit of money coming in, make sure that I'm staying healthy, and so that I can be of service optimally, because I don't have any strain or stress over me. So that's the beauty of, and for me, many years in my band years, that's where I practiced this the most, is that I had a band for 13 years, but I had to work to make money in another way. But see, I never I never judged myself for the job that I had, because I'm working on this. No, this is my life. So when people ask me what I did, I didn't tell them my job. I told them I was a musician. And then I'd always get, well, do you make money at that? I'd say not very much, but that's not why I do this. It's the same as being in the world of being of service. So I know that you're presently working on all of that, and I didn't shine any great ray of sunshine on that, but it is kind of that simple, that it is the chopping the wood and the carrying the water, and I think you're doing an incredible job, and I say just keep going in the direction you're going. You are blooming, and it is magnificent to watch.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I can also speak to the self-identity journey as well. And I think to most people, I project myself as having a good knowing of who I am, but I also have the same struggle. I've been talking with Alexander about it over the past maybe couple years, and we've been talking about working with, who am I and where do I want to put my stake in the ground? Kind of like that episode that we talked about with the social media post. And it was about like those moments you can help, or they can help you define who you are going forward. Would I rather be right or be helpful?
All right.
And then, it's a challenge that comes to me and I'm like, okay, well now I can reevaluate. Do I want to be right? Or do I want to be helpful? Right. And I have the chance to make that choice in that moment and then add that to my stake in the ground and be like, no, I want to be helpful as much as I can be. And so whenever we have a moment to pause in our decision making going through and, when we're being conscious in our decision making, then we can go back to that. No, in the past, I've wanted to be helpful, and I'm going to continue to be helpful, like setting a priority, like setting an intention, like you were talking about. Yeah. So I just want to say I'm there with you.
And I wanted to be sure to mention the three aspects that I like for people to look at is being clear in who you are, being clear in what you're about, and being clear in what you're going to exemplify. And as Aaron was just saying, when you have decisions to make in your life, that, to me, it helped me to simplify my decision making, because if my decision was based around that going to take me away from what I wanted to exemplify, then the answer is no. It's easy. Well, I'd like to, but 10 years ago I would do that. But now that's not what I'm looking to exemplify. There's no judgment. You go do that. So because we're constantly telling the universe how we want to be supported. Now, we're going to be challenged. And see, those challenges are just merely going, are you clear in who you are? Are you clear in what you're about? Are you clear in what you're going to exemplify? If all three of those answers are yes, that obstacle goes by very, very quickly. But let one of them get a no in there, and it creates a big, big issue. So, see, and something I'd like to clear, because I think this is going to confuse some people, but the first one, who you are. That is like, yes, do you want to be helpful? Do you want to be right? Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be a follower? See, it's basically like checking the ego and going, where does my ego fit into this? Someone of service, the ego has to sit down. No, just sit down. You're not going to be useful very much. Someone that wants to be a leader, their ego needs to stay up there pretty high, but they're going to offend people. So see, they're not going to do the same type of good as somebody of service, but there's no better or worse. So I think that's the big thing, is those three things, and then being able to answer those three questions: who you are, what you're about, and what you're looking to exemplify. And then every day working with that and going, is my actions and my words following under these three categories? And in the beginning, you may not be able to hone it down to just one single thing. I mean, I've got mine down, I feel like pretty clear, and everything in my life exemplifies all these three aspects. And they're all under one umbrella. But that, once again, that took me 25, almost 26 years to get like that. So that's why there's no rush or race, but I do like to say the sooner you start on it and do it consistently, the sooner you will find the answer to those three questions. And once again, I think you're getting more and more clear on those three questions. Which one, do you have one of those that you feel like you're the most hung up on, or have the most challenge of who you are, what you're about, or what you exemplify?
Well, I'm not sure, but I possibly, but I just want to share a little bit of who I was.
Okay, that's important.
And maybe I'll find, my lights just started flashing when I said that. Okay. Before, I would have thought that was crazy.
Right. Now,
so my former self. So, I spent a lot of years in a management and an influential position. And I created a lot of imbalance in that position for myself and for others. And I encouraged imbalance because my personal drive and motivation. And, now I am focused on balance and harmony and helping others, create that environment as well. So I feel like what a gift that I've received, in being able to recognize, have the awareness, have tools, and people and teachers and communities and ways to support me and help myself and then share with others. And, human design has been such a gift for me, and numerology, and just in understanding myself, having more compassion for myself and others. And it's been a really fun way to connect with other people and to see how we all connect, and just to experiment with it all. And that's it's just really helped me focus in on who I am at my core. Like, okay, that's what I did for all those years. It was a specific job, but who am I?
Right.
And,
big difference.
What's motivating me, what drives me, and what fulfills me. How helpful it has been for me to understand, my particular design. And one thing that, is super important is that you've reminded me of how creative I am and how intuitive I am. And for some weird reason, I resisted when you call, like, both of those things. But I find it interesting and a little sad that that I don't recognize either one of them. And I think that everyone needs to be reminded of how creative and how intuitive we all are. We just get so far away from it.
We do. Well said. And many times, of course, the Jack of Hearts is your birth card, if I'm not mistaken. So, so you're going in that direction. And just the older you get, the more playful that it will benefit you to look at things, to take things with less pressure. And I won't say less seriousness, because we want to keep our depth, but not seriousness meaning but in a stressful way, that we can take life way too serious. And Jacks are here to be that playful and to show a more youthful way of approaching things. And when you say that the human design, is fun, and it's like getting together on the playground and having a friend, and, you find a ball and you're just like, oh, let's play. That's, it has a similar effect with me, and I think Aaron as well. Anybody that gets into this philosophy, they're all great tools, and many people have different tools, and the human design and the card system are the tools I incorporated with the J.U.S.T philosophy, and they just fit very well as far as the language and how that is given.
I wanted to shine light on something Michelle was so vulnerable in mentioning, was that she in the past had encouraged imbalances, being in like a management type of position. And I think that if we're not conscious in our lives, that's kind of like the general societal norm, is to encourage imbalances in people, like try to squeeze everything we can out of them, in our working situations in our society nowadays. And when you become conscious of that, then you can take a step back and see the part that you've been playing. And not that you should judge yourself, but then you now have the opportunity to change that. And even if you're still in that position in management, you can make small changes. You can make a difference in other people's lives, but by changing how you can manage interacting with people and communicating with people. And maybe or even if you need to continue squeezing energy out of people, you can motivate people in different ways, so it's not the same old dry way of doing it, where people feel like, again, they're just a cog in the machine.
Well said. I think that's a great point in seeing that there are many different approaches, but seeing that when you can develop a similar language, and that's what we use these tools for, is to help with the language. And the philosophy kind of has its own language as well. But that, as I've said many times, the foundation of true healing is communication. And that seems to be, Physical or mental dis-ease normally stems from a weakness in the energetic field. The energetic field gets weakened through either suppression or over-exaggeration of the emotions. The emotions get stimulated from failures to communicate in our relationships. And so working on all the communication stuff helps on all of these levels that we're talking about. Communication affects all 5 of these levels. And finding a language that you can just connect with people on and not struggle helps to create that type of connection.
So, Michelle, in closing, I would like you to share your biggest light bulb moment in studying and working with this philosophy that, has made a huge impact on your life.
Everything's energy, the power of frequency. We're all one. We're all connected. I don't know that there's any one light bulb moment, but intention.
And all that's, it is huge. It sounds simple, but even just seeing that everything is energy and that in frequency, and our thoughts are part of those frequencies and our actions are part of those frequencies. For me, that helped to take the personal out of it, was when I really truly saw, oh, wow, everybody and everything is just energies, and we're affected by each other's energies. And true power is in not allowing external situations to affect your energy, whether that be a person or a situation. And so that's really one of the main focuses of the Just philosophy, is for you to actually stand in your power, put your stake in the ground. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is what I exemplify. While those are the roots of the tree, and then being compassionate and loving to others, to be willing to be flexible when they don't know maybe as much as you or haven't been practicing as long. And that's why the example is so much more important than the teacher. Because if you're the example in front of somebody, by laws of physics, the energies start to work together, and that person will start to move over to more of that action. And that's how I proved that energy is more powerful than DNA. And I don't have necessarily a way to prove that to scientists, but in raising my 2 stepsons from the time they were 3 years old, they still have a biological father, and I don't believe there's much of anyone that would think that they're not my biological sons if you put him and I in the same room with them. They act like me, they talk like me, their actions are much more in alignment with mine, and that's because they spent, probably 20 times as much time with me. So our environment, especially from the ages of 0 to 7, have such a drastic effect on who we are. And when we can take our environment, we can understand our family lineage and what our parents passed to us that isn't ours, and we can understand our cosmic makeup, how the planets support us. Those 3 things are what develop a human being, or their personality, or their reactions in this world. And that's what we help to dissect through all of this work that we're discussing. And I just personally want to thank you again, Michelle. This episode has been so incredible. I knew that you would knock it out of the park, but I will say that you even brought me a wonderful surprise, and the way you stepped up, amazing.
Thank you so much. Just have so much gratitude for you, for all of your wisdom that you've shared, all of your time and energy that both of you have, put into the podcast, and sharing all of these things that just allow so many amazing transformations to take place, and just so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
We appreciate your interest in self-growth, conscious communication, and continuing to ask the wise whys.
And remember, gradual changes over long periods of time equals lasting results.
The Just philosophy, as discussed in this podcast, has been developed by Alexander over the last 22 years in his private practice, professional environment, and private studies. The information discussed is intended for educational purposes only. It is not meant as a replacement for conventional medicine. Just remember, knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. Seek the wise. As we continue sharing this information, there are also multiple ways to share and support this work. Gain access to our exclusive content behind-the-scenes footage, and other products that assist you on your self-awareness journey by joining our patron team in exchange for a monetary donation by visiting wise-whys.com/patron. That is wise-whys.com/patreon. Another way of support is by sharing this podcast with receptive individuals or even leaving a review on popular platforms such as iTunes or Facebook helps us introduce this work to others through the listener's words. We are also on most major social networks, so follow us along there or even join our Facebook group community. Continue your journey by visiting Alexander's website where you are able to book private consultations in person, by phone, or even Skype. Know thyself better with human design and destiny card reports and readings, as mentioned in this podcast. View a calendar of his live performances and class schedule, peruse his other products such as shirts, CDs, and the revolutionary VibroTune sound vibrational therapy tables that assist with subtle energy alignments. So grab that keyboard and go to thejustphilosophy.com for those goodies. That's thejustphilosophy.com. And if you love the touch of a soft shirt with a message that will warm your heart in resonation, then check out my company, Verities Apparel, where I am a one-man band doing it all from design to physically printing the garment and sealing it all with a conscious touch. Just go to veritiesapparel.com, VERITEESAPPAREL.com. Thank you all for being a part of this journey with us.